Welcome to STEM at Home with Newton's Road for 10th to 12th grade students. Each week we will be joined by experts from regional businesses and career-oriented education and training programs. My name is Barb Termat, and I'm the Executive Director of Newton's Road, and we are a nonprofit supporting STEM learning and career exploration for the youth in our area, K-12. I also have with me today our Michigan Tech University intern, Annalisa Wiesner. Hi. This session will be recorded and available afterwards on our Facebook Live channel and also on our YouTube channel. Since it seems that people are joining us mostly from Facebook today, please use the comment area on our Facebook Live to send in any questions that you may have during our session today. And we will read them to our presenter. And speaking of our presenter, our very special guest today is Jen Marcenaro, and she is with Safety Net. Today, Jen was going to speak to us about soft skills. So she worked in the healthcare industry for 20 years and then switched to IT. And she's going to share her story about how her communication skills helps with that transition, along with many other things that will be very useful for you in IT careers and any STEM-related career, and actually in probably any career you might pursue. So welcome, Jen.
Hi.
So we're going to start with a look at our Newton's Road website page, so you can get a little bit familiar and how you can keep up with all the great things that are going on in our region in STEM. First off, you see this alert. For any of these Facebook Live events, you will be able to go from our alert message directly to the page where you can access the event. Also on our home page, if you scroll down about halfway and on the right side is a link to join our mailing list. And this way you can keep in touch with all of the new things that are happening. It just takes a minute. And we also wanted to show you our calendar where you can see all the live STEM-related events in our region. You can select the calendar that just shows live virtual events by deselecting the other calendar. And you'll see events that not only from Newton's Road, but also other STEAM maker groups in our area, such as Cognition and Norte are on right now. So I think that that covers us for today, and there are other places on our site I encourage you to look at, along with like our careers page and things that are very useful for older students. Okay, so I think that we are ready for you, Jen. So welcome back, and we're excited to hear what you have to share today.
Thank you. So I'm so happy to be back again, you guys. I had fun with you on Tuesday. We're going to be talking about what IT is and some things that you should know if you're looking for a career related to IT, and some things you can do to help right now if that's something that interests you. First, I would like to talk about just a little bit briefly about what IT stands for, just so we have a little bit of idea of what we're talking about. If you want to look back at Tuesday's presentation for a little bit more detail, that works too. But so the term IT stands for information technology. So information technology is very broad when it's used, but usually it means like referring to all aspects of managing and processing information, especially through an organization or company. So the term IT technically stands for informational technology that is through a business only. But these days, IT is kind of everywhere, and we'll get into that a little bit too. So if you use the term IT for your home network, that would be fine, and I think people would understand. So because it's so broad, I just want to break down the different layers of IT so that we can kind of understand how many careers are actually out there related to IT, because there are so many things that, Barbara and I were just talking about related to IT that you can't necessarily see. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on, which makes for a wide variety of careers and a wide variety of different training levels that you can seek. So let's just kind of get a little baseline. I won't spend a lot of time on it. but a little baseline of what we're talking about when we're talking about an IT career. So all these different layers we have here listed. We've got the physical layer. Now, these are the things that you can see and touch. So this is your computer, this is your cell phone, this is your tablet, cash register, card readers, anything that has that little electronic device and it's scanning your debit card at the gas station, or it's your gaming system. Okay, so then you can even narrow it down deeper to other layers, such as your operating systems, which I'm sure, if you're running a computer, you've heard of Mac or Apple, Windows, Linux. We've heard of Android phones, Apple phones. Those are all operating systems that run the physical devices. Then you can even get deeper layers, such as your databases and storage. And, think of storage as it can be out in the cloud. It can be a CD, a DVD, a USB flash drive, many, many, many different options. And then you can talk servers, which are mail servers, print servers, application servers. So the list really, really does go on and on and on. There are many, many different areas that you can really dig in and get deep into to get the experience. You guys right now are at a prime age where technology is very familiar to you and around you everywhere. And you've basically never been born without it. So you've been here in a time where you've always had it, but there's still people walking around that kind of have not. Your parents, your grandparents, probably some of your teachers grew up in either a time where just a portion of their lives IT existed, or maybe it was there, but it wasn't accessible the way it is now. If you go to the next slide, I'll just show you a couple things that I had growing up. And yep, that one. I don't consider myself very old, but when I was young in school, we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have computers. That middle picture is a computer that I did see first about 8th grade, and we got introduced to it in school, but we didn't have email. I don't remember even getting email until the first year of college. So that one on the left is a car phone that if you were someone real fancy, you had that. I saw that first maybe in high school. So we didn't have these things that you guys have now. So just imagine the things you guys have as far as technology and where that's going in the future. And that's actually where you can go ahead and switch the slide. And that's where you guys come in, because as you get older and you start to look for those jobs, you're going to be a huge asset to the IT environment because you've grown up with it and you're comfortable around it and you're involved in seeing it grow with you. So right now is a great time, and it's never too late to start digging into what IT is. And there's so many avenues that you can get involved with because we know that IT is going to be around for a long time. It's not going to go away. And even if you, Barb mentioned, and we'll talk about in a minute, you go into a field in healthcare, chances are you're still going to be using some technology. So it's important that you start kind of digging in and taking a look. Right now, I know my middle schooler thinks that IT basically boils down to video games and YouTube and TikTok. And that's great because he definitely has an interest in building his own video game or website sometime, or become a famous YouTuber like Jacksepticeye. But there is so much more to it. And it's definitely a start to just kind of, if you see that, hey, I'm interested in that, kind of look around and pay attention to what's around there and what's out there and get a feel for what part piques your interest. So information technology is in just about everything that we touch. And if you think about it, in every piece of electronic that we touch or technology that we touch or we don't see necessarily, there's a user using it and there's a professional making it work. So the level of skill and training can vary widely depending on what you decide to do and what direction you decide to take your career. But we're going to touch on some of those basic things that you should have no matter what for any aspect of IT. So the first one, because there's always that user, there's somebody using that machine or that phone or that app or that database out there. Communication, you guys, I can't stress it enough, is going to be the tippity top #1 skill to have in IT, in actually any job really. So let's talk about that a little bit deeper. So behind every piece of tech, we said, there's a user and there's the person fixing it. Even if you're somebody that's not fixing it, you're not the person just fixing the IT that's broken, you're designing it, you're making that tech work. You're building it. The user is still there telling you what their vision is, and you're still making that vision happen. So being able to communicate and provide customer service to those people that makes them feel important is huge, because it's going to make everything better about your job. The customer's happier, you're going to get more business. So it's very, very important for you to have that skill. Go ahead and switch. Yep, there you go. So at any level, you're sitting at the help desk, which is where, you know, the calls come in, your computer's broken, or you're help solving those tickets, or you're deploying a new computer to a user, or even designing new software for a corporation. You're going to be talking to those people. You're going to be emailing those people. You're going to be communicating through chat rooms, or even through apps, or video chatting with people. And it doesn't even matter what position you're in, you're going to always be doing that. So this also includes your coworkers too, as well. You want to be able to communicate well with the team. So you want to be able to communicate clearly. Honestly, most of the time you'll be working with people that are kind of upset or frustrated with technology, because when it isn't working, it is frustrating. So having those skills is going to help you and help address how to handle certain situations too. So I know it's a common misconception that when you get into IT, that you're working with machines or a computer, and you can kind of sit in a corner in your home office and not have to talk to anybody. And I'm definitely in my home office in a corner, but I'm talking to people all day long. So it's super important, especially now. We've had, especially with the whole COVID-19 thing, it's a good reminder even for me that people having trouble getting their tech to work, or in this case, we had to get people working from home suddenly, or figure out a way that they could do their jobs in a different way. And I realized that IT is critical, and it's essential for people to keep their businesses running. So not only are we helping them to fix things, but we have a big job with a big purpose, and that's to help people. So you're not just sitting with a machine, you're actually accomplishing a need of helping people and helping others. And when you do a good job at it, it feels really good. So I can promise you that companies are looking for this. And I got this slide up here. These are just some pictures for Safety Net while I rattle on about how I got my job at Safety Net, because it's a perfect example here. So Barb had mentioned in the beginning that I was 20 years healthcare, and that's true. So when people that know me hear that I work at an IT company, and that maybe I was solving support tickets or fixing and deploying computers, people are a little bit surprised. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, they know I came from 20 years of healthcare. What am I doing in IT? And two, there's kind of a stereotype about people that work in IT, that they're not outgoing and they can't communicate, and they're a little bit shy. And some of that is true, but it doesn't have to be true anymore. And we talked a little bit about the time I grew up and how there wasn't computers and electronics all around me. I had an Atari and Nintendo when I was younger, but I was not interested in tearing apart a computer and putting it together and designing software at a young age like my younger coworkers were. I just wasn't. But a few years ago, I found myself kind of wanting a change in direction. And at my old healthcare job, I was the youngest in my office. So I kind of just became the IT person by default. If anything broke, they would ask me to call the real IT guy that knew how to fix it and help troubleshoot. And I started to kind of gain a small interest in helping with that. And so when I found myself looking for a new job or career, I saw Safety Net's website and I was like, ooh, this place looks awesome. I want to go there. I can learn how to do this. I know computers. Like, I can do email. I know Office products. Like, I can make a slideshow. Like, I know computers, right? So I end up applying. I get a call from the owner, and she does an hour-long phone interview, you guys, an hour long. And this is typical. This is a pretty typical interview, an hour long. So I'm talking with her for an hour, and it becomes very quickly apparent that I have nowhere near the IT skills that I need, like not at all. Like, I thought I knew IT, I know nothing. So she basically gets my name, my number, and says, you need to go to school if you want to work here. Here's who to call at NMC. Get hooked up with some classes. Give us a call back, like in a year or so or two after you're done with some school. So yada yada. I do that. I get into school. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go work for Safety Net. And I get in the classes and I start working. It has not been a year. It has not been 2 years. And I get a call from Safety Net. and it's the owner. And she says, hey, did you end up signing up for any classes by chance? Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Well, it turned out they wanted to have me in for a peer interview, which is basically another level of the job interview, but in front of the people that you work with. And she basically said, we really liked your phone interview and how you communicate and talk with us. And we keep thinking about you and we wonder where we can put you. And, maybe that position that we were saying was more technical, maybe isn't as technical as we thought it was. Come on in. So come in, do that, make it past that interview. Another hour-long interview, by the way, it was like 40 minutes. Then another interview after that with the administrators. So like 3 hours of interviewing, talking with people during this process. So I get through the last interview of talking. And this is where it's important because the job I was interviewing for had a technical skills test that needed to be taken. And they said to me, we know that you won't pass the technical skills test, but we know that maybe you have something else and we feel like maybe you will be okay and you'll be able to learn. And they gave me a chance and they hired me. And I'm so grateful and I'm so lucky that they were able to see something in me that maybe they weren't necessarily looking for, but they saw. Like, they can teach me a little bit of that basic IT, but they can't teach me how to talk and speak and be comfortable talking to them. So this is huge, you guys. I kind of rattled on about it and it was kind of long, but it's so important because employers are looking for that. You could go to school for 5 years, but if you can't talk to them and you can't just get along and be comfortable with your coworkers, you're probably not going to land the job. So I want you guys to be thinking about that now when you're young, because I think about when I was young and I wasn't always an outgoing person, but there are some things that I did that I think helped me. I mean, I'm always outgoing, but I never really was always comfortable talking in front of people the way that I am, like in crowds and stuff. So there are some things we can do to help. We're going to talk about it. What can you do when you're not naturally comfortable speaking to people? So right now, while you're young, you're in high school, now is the time. So get comfortable on the phone. I know this is going to be hard because there's apps for everything. We can order a pizza through an app. Our parents are still kind of scheduling doctor's appointments, but don't do it. I can remember my parents making my sister and I call on our own pizza, and we hated it. I did not want to call and order my own food. Still to this day, I will hesitate to make the call to order my own food, but it's one of the things that got me comfortable on the phone, and it's one of the things that helps me in my job today. So next time, do not use the app. Call, order a pizza or whatever you're eating, or make an appointment for a sibling or your own appointment at the doctor or something, and it helps. So also, you guys, join activities or classes that promote communication. They're all around you in school. They're all around you in extracurricular activities. So I had taken speech. I was in drama. Barb mentioned dance made her more confident. She never had to talk in front of people, but she got out in a crowd in front of people. Maybe band. You could join debate. It gets you familiar with that conversation, or join a spelling bee where you're at a microphone in front of people. But it doesn't always have to be as dramatic as like being up in front on a microphone by yourself. It can be like join a dance class or something. There's many teams and clubs. Even a soccer team would get you comfortable with teamwork and communication, because when you're out on the field and you're passing that ball, what are you doing? You're communicating, right? You're so, hey, I'm passing you the ball, So joining these things are really helpful, and it's going to promote communication. It's also going to promote constructive criticism, because when you're on a team, your teammates are always trying to tell you how to get better. And when you're in a job, it's kind of the same thing. Your teammates are there to help you, teach you, help you get better. So you want to do that. Also, if you join like STEM or robotics, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. All right, so let's talk about, we've got a little bit of time left here. We're going to talk about those other skills that we have, okay, for IT that are important. And these are some of the skills that I did pull off that position that I was applying for a couple of years ago. That was an entry level position. You didn't have to know a ton, but they still knew I wasn't going to pass it. But there are some things that we specifically look for. You're tested on your phone skills. You're tested on your typing. So you need to make sure that you're working on your typing. We're going to talk about how to work on these in the next slide, but you're going to work on your typing. You're going to work on your phone skills. This is another thing. People get into IT and they think that maybe they don't have a lot of paperwork. That is not true. So you got to make sure you're good at documentation, you're comfortable with it, you're following a checklist, you're good with that. Anatomy of a PC. You have an old one laying around, pull it apart, put it back together, Google what those insides look like and see if you can figure them out. Basic knowledge of computers and networks and what they do. It's good to have that so that you have the basics down of how everything works. And then prioritizing and knowing what's important. We'll get a little deeper in that in the next slide. Following directions, following that checklist. Following directions is huge because we don't know everything by heart in IT. A lot of times we're having to look up directions, basically following a recipe, like if you were cooking a dinner, you're following that recipe, you're following the directions. And if you don't follow them, it doesn't turn out the way you want it. So also multitasking. That is something that can be good or bad, but and it does take practice. But like in that position that I applied for, my job would be to be answering the phone, answering a chat, and an email all at once, handling issues. So troubleshooting, figuring out why the problem's happening and how you can fix it. And let's switch slides and we'll talk about some of the things you can do to gain these skills. Okay, so I kind of mentioned it already, but so if you do get into IT, even if you want to be a software developer or you want to specialize in security, you're always going to still need these basics. So it's never too soon to start working on this stuff because then you can advance faster is how I kind of look at it, is that even the people that are working in those big fancy jobs as a data analyst had to do this basic stuff at some point. So have an old computer laying around, an old gaming system, tear it apart safely, obviously, see what's in there, Google the parts, like what is this used for, how does this work, and just kind of get familiar. Troubleshooting issues is like a good practice because in IT, you're constantly troubleshooting. So there's problems at your house happening all the time. Your Wi-Fi is not working, your dad gets an error on his computer, pull it up on Google, see what the error means. A little secret about IT work is that we don't always know all of the errors by heart. It's Google. And I was really surprised as I was working around my coworkers that they Google a lot of stuff. So look it up, figure it out, see if you can fix it. And it feels really good when you can. So working on the skill of prioritizing. Okay, this is a little bit trickier. Prioritizing means pick what's important first. So you need to do this in IT quite a bit. So you can prioritize your life. Okay, I have all this schoolwork going on today. What do I need first? And maybe you're already kind of naturally doing this. Which things are due first? Which are more important? Which are going to take longer and I should start working on now? Those things are going to help you when you start working in a career field because you're always going to have a constant flow of to-do list and you need to kind of figure out what can I work on first and what's due first and what do they want and what are my expectations, that kind of thing. So we already talked about getting involved in those groups, but you can also listen to blogs and read information and stay up to date on the current IT news because IT is changing all the time. So if you're subscribed to some sort of blog or magazine or something online, you're kind of staying on top of it. Also, IT companies like even Safety Net and others have this information usually on their website. So, go to the Safety Net website and kind of snoop around, read our blog, check out our Facebook page, stalk us on LinkedIn. We put good information out there of like viruses that are out there, of new tech that's out there. So stay in that loop and know what's going on. Typing skills. So there are some free typing tests online and they're like turned into games. So it's kind of fun. There's one called at www.typingtests.com and then there's freetypinggame.net. And those are free and they kind of turn typing into a game and it tells you how fast you're typing, which is important. And it's on a lot of job descriptions, like how fast can you type? I had to type pretty fast because I'm on the phone typing someone's issue into a ticket. So you need to be able to type pretty quickly, not super speed or anything. And then if you are interested in a career specific to the area of IT, call a local company and see if you can come do a tour or if they have events that you could attend. Safety Net does events with college students here. We are more than happy to open our doors to anyone interested in IT and show you around. Feel free to call us. We will answer those questions for you because you're our upcoming future employees. So we want to make sure that you have the information that you need. So that's about it, guys. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today or on Tuesday, feel free to reach out to me. We're always here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
So we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Let's pull them up here. So you kind of touched on this when you talked about your experience getting hired, but would someone who has good communication skills and less experience be hired over someone who is more qualified but doesn't have good communication skills?
Okay, so that one's kind of tricky because I can't necessarily answer for every company. But in my case, it actually did, because that same day that I had my peer interview, and I didn't know about this at the time, but I heard about it later from my coworkers, is that somebody had more experience than me and interviewed right before me. And so that person interviewed right before me and had years of experience, but kind of was like my coworkers described it as kind of like blah and like didn't seem to, interact in the conversation very well. So when it came time to choose, then I came in next and I was kind of like, hey, how are ya?
Yeah.
I did get hired over someone. I don't know if that will always be the case, but it is definitely a possibility and I'm proof. Oh, I think she's not working again.
Oh dear. Okay. So that's okay. So is there anything that you do once you start that gives more practice on your communication skills?
Once I start working?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
you
when you're at the company,
yes.
like you have some level of communication. What are some ways that you can continue to improve?
That's a great question, because one of the things is that, and I touched on it a little bit, that I've always been outgoing, but when I started my job, there was a couple months there where I was not in my comfort zone. So I'm answering the phone and I was really nervous and I felt like, why did they hire me? They made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. And honestly, Barb, was just practice. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Like the more you talk, and that's why joining those groups, and even if they're not communication based, like drama or something, like the dance, like you said, or a team, just getting out there and getting comfortable talking to other people is huge. It's practice.
It's been my experience too. So in terms of entry-level positions, oh, did you have another question, Annalisa?
Yeah,
I
okay.
hear you.
Now you can hear me good. We do have another question. Can you choose to have a job that requires more or less communication skills depending on what you want?
Yes, I think that you can, but it is important to keep in mind that you are always going to have to communicate a little bit. But even if you can send an email most of the time, sometimes you're going to have to call. So you don't want to really rely on the fact that I'm going to choose a job that doesn't have to communicate, because you do always, to a certain extent, have to. Now, that first job that I took, that entry-level job, which a lot of the entry-level jobs, even at Safety Net, are kind of help desky. They're the calls come in, the emails come in, the chats come in. But you don't have to choose that. There are so many, all those different pieces of tech that we talked about, all have a job related to them. So you can most definitely pick and choose ones that are more communication or less.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think some of the jobs, you mentioned doing reports, but you also have to be able to explain to your manager or to your peers what you're doing and why. So it might not be customer communications, but it's communications to the other people that you work with.
Exactly. And like at Safety Net, for example, they look for the communication, and it's made for a really strong team of employees. Like we all work very well together.
Well, I think we have to wrap up. This has been fantastic, Jen. This is so important for all the students and everyone to understand. So thank you for coming twice in 1 week. And also thank you to our sponsors and supporters that you see here that make this kind of programming possible, including our partner in this case of Traverse Area Community Media. So thanks to you, Matt and team. It's been fantastic working with you. And lastly, we do have a Make a Sundial contest coming up, and this will be a great thing to look for, but we're also going to be having, at this time slot going forward over the summer, we're going to have more business professionals and training program staff come and talk to you about different careers in our area. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again going forward, and please go back and listen to some of these recordings. They're really phenomenal. So bye for now, and hope to see you next week this time.